many concerns people have about GMOs is the health and risk factors they believe GMOs causes. For example, there have been many falsifications that GMOs is associated with cancer. To begin with, this is a burden to others because in 2012 there was a study called the Seralini study researched by Gilles Aaron Seralini. In his study, he used rats to detect the effects of GMOs. During the study, they were only fed genetically modified organisms. Seralini stated that due to their GMO consumption, they got cancer. However, one thing he did not state were that these rats were prone to cancer no matter what they ate, which was physically seen through their malignant tumors. Due to this falsification of the study, it is now retracted. Overall, it is unknown where cancer comes from, but there are cofactors that lead up to it. For example, one of the main causes of cancer are exposure to UV lights, smoking, and consumption of alcohol. However, GMOs does not prevent nor cause cancer. Cancer is a disease where cells proliferate abnormally. According to Dr. Kevin Folta, the Bt protein and the enzymes used in GMOs does not affect the cellular changes of the human body like cancer does. He explained that cells show changes associated with the stress that sometimes include abnormal growth. But it is important to remember that cells in a petri dish do not behave like cells in the body. There is no reliable evidence that the genes in a genetically modified organism can cause the same changes in a living organism. GMOs have been out in the market for over 20 years and there have not been any cases that prove that they are the cause of cancer.
Another big argument against using GMO-enhanced crops is that they're bad because they aren't natural. Of course, it is true that GMOs are done through a man-made process, but just because they're not natural doesn't mean it's suddenly untrustworthy. This kind of combination of qualities from different varieties of organisms has been used all throughout history, even before the mainstream type of GMOs was practiced through means such as hybridization. For example, during the late 19th century, the phylloxera epidemic was wiping out the Vitis vinifera grape in Europe. They combated this problem by creating hybrid versions of the Vitis vinifera grape with naturally resistant American Vitis labrusca grapes to make the European grapes also resistant. Because of this combining of genes, French wine still tastes just as good as before, but is now immune to the phylloxera insect. In conclusion, just because it isn't natural doesn't mean it's not safe or instantly bad. Humans have been finding ways to share genes among different organisms for positive reasons for centuries. GMOs are just a more precise way of making this phenomenon happen to create organisms with less natives and more benefits. And that's all for this segment.
The third misconception involves GMOs having a negative impact on the environment. The fact is that GM crops allow farmers to preserve more land while doing more with less resources. A study done from 1996 to 2016 assessing the global economic and environmental impacts of biotech crops showed that the technology used to produce genetically modified crops has reduced pesticide spraying by 671.2 million kilograms and has reduced environmental footprint associated with pesticide use by 18.4%. The technology has also significantly reduced the release of greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture, equivalent to removing over 16 million cars from the roads in a year. This is due to the fact that the technology and practices used to produce the genetically modified crops do not involve as much machines emitting the fuels into the air. According to a meta-analysis on the impacts of GM crops, GM technology has reduced chemical pesticide use by 37%. A U.S. study on maize and soybean farmers from 1998 to 2011 concluded that adopters of herbicide-tolerant maize used 1.2% less herbicide than non-adopters, and adopters of insect-resistant maize used 11.2% less insecticide than non-adopters.
Still not entirely comfortable about consuming GMO products, there are a couple of alternatives for you. The first one is buying organic foods. And although organic does not mean non-GMO, organic foods are grown without the use of herbicides and pesticides, which may contain genetically modified organisms. Moreover, the lack of herbicide and pesticide use most of the time tells you that the food was not genetically engineered to be resistant to these herbicides and pesticides. One easy way that you can check that your food is organic is by looking for the USDA organic and non-GMO label on it. The second way is to cook your own food. when you eat at restaurants, it's very difficult to know whether the food that you're eating contains genetically modified products. By buying non-GMO and organic products to cook on your own, you can make sure that you don't consume genetically modified products.